So as last week, we have two passages to read, and for those who want to follow in the Bibles that are hopefully near you, you might want to put one finger in the later passage, which can be found on page 969, and that's Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 to 30. So that's page 969, if you want to pop a finger in that page. And then if you want to turn to page 78, so Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. So that's page 78. Exodus chapter 20, verse 14. You shall not commit adultery. And then moving on to Matthew chapter 5. You have heard that it was said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Sex! There, I knew I'd get your attention. Sex is everywhere in our society. It is in our advertising, our TV, radio, social media, online, newspapers, magazines. This morning we're continuing our journey through the Ten Commandments with how to affair-proof your relationship. But in fact, we're not going to limit ourselves to that. We're going to think about that and a lot more. Not just how to be part of a couple, but how to be single and how to resist the many temptations around sex. As a word of warning, I'm going to be quite direct this morning. Some of this talk will be around adult themes, so please be aware. And if you hear something which goes clunk and you just think, I'm not sure about that, do make use of our YouTube channel and listen to it again, because I do want to be as clear as I can. I've got two thoughts and then three things you can do. So here's my first thought. Sex is God's gift to humanity. Sex is essential to being human. It is powerful. The Bible is clear 100% that sex is a good thing given by God for our benefit. Historically, the church has often got this wrong, having a negative view of sex and sexuality, partly because of its power, because it is powerful. One word the outside world often comes up with about the church is that we're judgmental. Nowhere is that more true than in our attitude towards sex and sexuality. And because of its power, God places boundaries around sex. The Bible only approves of sex within a married relationship, and that the Bible interprets that as one man, one woman for life. Now, Christians disagree on how to interpret this in modern life, but there is not much argument that the Bible on the face of it is clear. Nature shows us that men and women are counterparts. We are born with a set gender that is written into every cell in our bodies. You'll realise as I go along, there's a lot that can be said about all of this, which I don't have time to say this morning. It's not necessarily the subject. The Bible is also clear that singleness is a gift from God. It is not a second-class option. Jesus himself was single, as was Paul. And if we say that it's not good to be single, we're saying it's not good to be like Jesus. And that just can't be right, can it? So if sex is God's gift to humanity, so is marriage. Genesis 2 sets up marriage with the first couple, Adam and Eve. It involves leaving your family of origin, uniting to your husband or your wife, and becoming one flesh. Marriage is both a physical union where a couple becomes one flesh, and it's a covenant where you make promises which shouldn't be broken. In the Christian view, marriage doesn't restrict your freedom. Marriage brings freedom to people. In marriage, you are free to love your partner and not hold anything back, to be wholly yourself, to give and receive love unconditionally. Intimacy in any relationship is saying, I see you, even the bad bits, and I choose every day to love all of you. And that's a choice that married people make every day. Marriage brings security both to a couple and to any children they have. A married couple who have a child are much more likely to be together when the child finishes school than an unmarried couple. So then, sex is God's gift to humanity. But, here's our second thought, our society gets sex wrong. We've seen sex is everywhere in our society. People treat sex as a commodity, as a sort of fun leisure activity, something you can just enjoy as you choose with no consequences. But our society's approach to sex promises far more than it can deliver. It promises maturity, comfort, excitement. It can't live up to all of those. Family breakdown in the UK is estimated to cost £47 billion a year, not to mention the cost of adultery on the mental health of couples or children or the wider social cost. When sex goes wrong, we minimise the consequences. I remember somebody I knew whose marriage broke down in a particularly ugly way, and someone said of the man, he's been a naughty boy. No. That is something you say of a dog who's done a whoopsie on the carpet. This man had sought his own gratification with various people who weren't his wife and he only admitted anything when there was overwhelming evidence of his guilt. He most certainly was not a naughty boy. Now, nowhere is society's approach to sex seen more clearly than in pornography. Porn is a worldwide $100 billion a year industry. Porn reduces sex to a commodity. It reduces people to instruments for your own gratification. If you watch porn, and statistically half of you do regularly, so if it's not you, it's the person next to you, not to make you feel uncomfortable, you expose yourself to something which is highly addictive and can spiral into violent and extreme content. Most sex offenders began as serial users of explicit porn. So if the biblical approach to sex is that it's for one man, for one woman, for life, our society falls down on every level. People hook up for one-night stands. There are loads of apps specifically for that. And people don't realise how powerful sex is, or they just deny it. When you have sex with someone, you become one flesh. You know, you're stuck together. That is not something that is easy to pull apart. If you use porn, someone you don't know is giving you something they are not meant to give and you are not meant to receive. So, our society gets sex wrong. What then can Christians do? That is our next question. Well, the first thing is we can affirm and support married people. We've seen that Christians affirm marriage, first as a space for a couple to thrive, second to find intimacy and unconditional love, third to provide a secure and loving home for children. But friends, we need to be real about marriage, because marriage is many good things, but like anything else that's worth having in life, it is also hard work. Spending your life with a partner involves constant give and take, compromise, negotiation. You have fewer choices about how you spend your time, and that's especially true if you're raising a family. Now, in theory, Christians know this because a couple marrying in church promise to love each other for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. And for some of you at the moment, it probably feels mainly like it's for worse, for poorer, and in sickness. But because we're all so British and so reserved, we often don't expose the truth about our marriages. Now, I'm not saying you need to wash all your dirty linen in public, But I am definitely saying that if you're married, you need to say, who would know if we were struggling? Who would we turn to for help? Who is praying for us? And if you don't know the answer, do give that some serious thought together. Because it's not only about adultery. Frequently, it's just about a steady loss of intimacy and respect. Friends, raising children is full on, and many of you know that because you've done it. A couple has to be really intentional about carving out time continually as a two to talk about things that actually matter to them and not just about whatever the day's chores are. It is really easy to lose respect for your partner if you consistently see them at their worst, worn out, burning the candle at both ends, emotionally exhausted, and if you're in that state as well. Friends, if your spouse tells you that between you need some help, go and get help. If you're one flesh, it should just be enough that your other half is sounding an alarm bell. As Jesus' people, we need to show God's grace to those people who are married. They need space to thrive away from their children. One of the great blessings of church is that we're one of the only truly intergenerational communities. The older person who never had children can be a grandparent in this community. The single person can find help and support. Children who are being raised without extended family or with only one parent can find the others here. And just as we've talked about children quite a bit already in this talk, please be considerate to the childless as well. Church can be an incredibly difficult place for couples who don't have children. Because we love children, we treat families with children as the norm, and we put a lot of our resources into children and young people. But friends, if you hear me say nothing else this morning, please hear me say this. Show me a Christian couple without children, Christian married couple without children. I will show you two people who at the very least have a story. And it will very often be a very hard and painful one. Only rarely is it a choice not to have children. I've met Christian couples who have chosen not to, but it's rare. And when those people come to terms with it, but when those people do come to terms with that, they can be hugely productive because they've got all the resources which other people pour into their children, that time, energy, and money. So, friends, affirm and support married people. Be a good friend. If you know things are hard, offer to help. Spot the warning signs of problems. Share your own experiences. There's nothing more encouraging than when people share their own experiences, especially if they're experiences of messing up, falling down, having a hard time and getting through it. When we can be vulnerable and show others our own weaknesses and failures, we give people permission to be themselves, and that is what intimacy is. So then, affirm and support married people. That's our first thought. Our second thought is affirm and support single people. Because if it's hard to be married, friends, it's also really hard to be single. And just like those married couples without children, churches often overlook single people. We talk about marriage and family life as though it's the ideal way to be. We ask single people when they're going to settle down, as though they always have to be looking for their life partner. And this is sad because, in fact, churches have all the ingredients to help Christian single people thrive. Single people need intimate friendships. They need relationships where they can be themselves because they don't have a spouse. They need unconditional love. Families can include a single person as part of the family virtually, and those relationships can be hugely enriching because single people are in charge of their own time and resources. They have a lot to give, or they can do. A lot of families would give their right arm to have someone who would just call in for a chat, some food, and maybe some babysitting. And that will bless your single friends as well, because that's a night where they're not just sat in front of the telly wondering what to do. So affirm and support single people. Don't treat them as second-class citizens. Don't ask them when they're going to settle down. Embrace them as friends who have a huge amount to offer and give them space to be themselves. And then our third thought is just challenge our sexualized society. Friends, we need to see the world with Jesus' eyes and not just accept what we're given. We need to not ignore the difficult realities of the modern dating scene, of the easy sexual hookup culture and pornography. I can guarantee 100% for anyone here, whatever you've got set up on your phone, if I picked up your phone, I could find something hardcore to look at in 2 minutes. If you don't ask your close friends, your colleagues, or your children about all of this stuff, who is going to? And if you see warning signs, don't ignore them and don't minimize bad or abusive behavior. Face up to it. And if you're struggling with any of these issues, I am sure I am speaking to someone who is struggling. Maybe many people. Please, please talk to somebody. Find someone to be open and vulnerable with, who will pray with you, who will help you to find your way through it. We specialize in this. Ministers will always make time to talk privately with anyone who requests it. We will do that in a non-judgmental way. We will pray with you, and it will be completely confidential. And then don't expose yourself deliberately to things which are unhelpful. That reading from the Gospel, Jesus talks about gouging out your eye, cutting off your hand if it causes you to sin. So be ruthless with yourself when it comes to sexual sin. Do not go near it. You are dealing with stuff that for many people is as addictive as crack cocaine. Don't mess with it. If an app on your phone is a problem for you, disable it. If your phone is a problem, trade in your smartphone for a dumb phone. It can be done. If your children have smartphones and you haven't with them set up every filter you can and worked through which apps they're going to have and which they're not and what all the settings on all of those are, do it. Your school will have told you how you can do it. They have huge amounts of information. And talk to your children about it, because it is your responsibility as a parent. Challenge our sexualized society. Now, we need to conclude by remembering that all of us are sinners. We all get this wrong. We are all sinners in our sex lives as well. It is through God's grace in the death and resurrection of Jesus, which we're going to remember this morning as we share bread and wine together, that we can have forgiveness and a fresh start. And again, I look around this room, I see many people who've made mistakes and found a fresh start in their lives. I can think of so many Christians, including the man I mentioned earlier, who was called a naughty boy, who found a fresh start in life. Forgiveness is possible. Friends, Jesus' people have a better story when it comes to relationships than our world does. Our church has numerous people. Again, I look around, people who've been married for 50, even 60 years. And we've got all ages and stages of life rubbing along together, all sorts of people. So let's affirm marriage, but let's be real about it as well. And let's help people when they're struggling. Let's support those who are childless as well. Let's make proper space for single people. Let's be real. Let's be kind. And let's never forget, who are we? We are God's transforming people in our parish to love Jesus, to serve and tell others, and to be community. Let's pray. And just take a moment in the silence, and whatever it is that the Holy Spirit is really speaking to you about this morning, just ask God to be close to you in that. Lord Jesus, in you there is true intimacy. In you we are made whole. In you we find who we truly are. So help us to resist the temptations and the wrong use of sex that our world gives us. Help us to support